It's the 21st of February 2021. Beautiful day outside. Sun is shining. It's nice and warm. It's going to be, I think, about -4 degrees today outside. But with the sun shining in here, we're already very toasty. I actually need to take my sweater off soon. And I've got a few plants here that we have to deal with. These were all things that were on my windowsill inside the house. Most of them were under the grow lights. And I'm going to plant, these are all very cold tolerant vegetables, so I want to plant them in the gardens in the greenhouse. And we've got bok choy, we have Chinese cabbage, some kale, leaf lettuce, carrots, beets and broccoli, some arugula, romaine lettuce, more spinach, more arugula, and some green onions there at the back. The other thing I want to show you is the difference between plants grown under grow lights and just on the windowsill. Now these were started at the same time. It's the same variety of leaf lettuce, and you can see what a huge difference there is between ones under the grow lights and not. So the ones that they all started under the grow lights at the very beginning, but then I ran out of space and I had to move some over to another window. And these have been a good 2 to 3 weeks that they haven't been in the with the grow lights, and they're getting very spindly. The leaves are very elongated, and then you look at the ones that have been under the grow lights all the time, and you'll see it's just such a huge difference. These are so nice and compact. The volume of leaf may not be any different, but these are spread. They're stretched, and these are nice and compact. Just planting some of the seedlings up. We've got trays. I'm using 1204, so there are 12 of these cells, and they've got 12 packs, sorry, and they have 4 cells in each pack. So industry kind of referred to them as 1204. So a 1006 would be 10 packs with 6 cells in each pack. So I'm filling up the soil, and then I'm going to take it and give it a couple of taps. Helps to settle it without packing it in. And go back over it. Make sure the corners are full. There we go. I'm going to start here. I've got some broccoli. Put my label in so I know what it is. So I'm poking a hole with my finger and then pushing it in. Just trying to pull these apart without damaging the roots too much. If you leave them in there too long, the roots get so intertwined that you break so many roots when you pull them apart. You really shock the plant, and it takes a little while for it to come back. But you can see as I've pulled them apart how much root is left in those. So that's how much root I've pulled off those plants. So not a good thing, but sometimes you just can't avoid it. Tried to keep a good bit of root left. Make a hole down, push it in. And broccoli, it doesn't matter if it's planted a little deeper, so it's good. It'll sturdy up those stems a little bit. And although things look pretty floppy right now, a little bit of sun and a little bit of moisture, and they'll kind of straighten up over a couple of days. And next I've got some romaine lettuce. So I'm going to try and do these 2 together. Normally I would only do 1 in a cell. Actually, I'm just going to do 1 in a cell. Let's keep it simple. These are going to grow just fine. Sometimes I would do 2 if I was worried that they weren't all going to grow, and I could go through afterwards and I can trim them, trim the extra ones out if I wanted to. If you give them a bit of space, they'll grow, they'll just spread out in the garden, even if there's two together. But I want a nice head of romaine. If I get them too close, they are going to get spindly and they just won't be able to produce that nice shape that you kind of expect. Again, simple, just making a hole with my finger. Push in carefully. You don't want to damage the stems. And when I pull this apart, I'm barely putting any pressure on those stems. Just enough that I can pull it away. And I'm even down in a little bit. What I made the mistake, you'll see I seeded them all pretty close together. I should have spread them out a little better in the container, just so they'd be easier to pull apart and get a little more root with them. But getting kale's pretty tough, so it's not a problem. There's some seedlings like begonias that are very tiny, a lot of the flowering plants. Impatiens, you have to be very careful not to squeeze the stem and damage the stem, so then they won't do anything for you. So there's one tray. Next we have some Chinese cabbage. So I'm just tipping it over, a little bit of a squeeze, get it to release. Put my label in. So quite excited about the Chinese cabbage, partly because it's easy to grow and it'll grow in such cool weather. I haven't cooked anything with it yet. I'm going to be harvesting some probably next week. I think the plants are finally growing to the point that I can at least pull off some. Yeah, I grew up as a kid. This is what I did on my March break. A lot of times we had the greenhouses, and I didn't mind it. I really didn't. Not that we never played, but it's kind of nice to have something to do. Out in the sun was always nice. You get to March, and it's just been so cold outside. It's nice to enjoy the sunshine. I am going to be overflowing with things in this greenhouse in another month and a half, because I've got I'm hoping to have almost 1,000 seedlings coming in this week, and not to mention, you know, a few hundred I still have of my own. But I'm hoping that by the time, you know, April rolls around, that I'm actually, things like the Chinese cabbage are I'm harvesting, and they're out of here making some more space. These new plants, and these ones are all plants that are going to be grown in the greenhouse. The other things are going to be going outside, so they will have space eventually. And come, you know, especially by mid-April, I will start putting things outside and just bring them in the cold weather. So I've got these carrots. I potted some into a pot today. I'm going to put some in these trays. Try and get a nice deep hole so that they can go in. Carrots have a tendency to want to deform if the ground is hard. So the nice thing with this soilless mix, it's very loose, but I want to make sure I don't compact the soil too much. These will go into larger pots in a little while, but I'll leave them in these for probably about a month and then get some more pots ready. I think that's good. It's 20. Then I've got lots of extra. And I've got some spinach and some beets. So this is just to have a few early beets. My main beet crops will be out in the garden. I'll seed them direct, and that will provide us, that's what we're going to use to do our pickled beets and that sort of thing. And I got some spinach. A lot of times spinach is just seeded direct, most of the time, and depending on how big you want it to grow before you harvest. If you want baby spinach, then you're harvesting when it's pretty young, so you can seed it quite thick. If you want a big head of spinach like lettuce, then you would let it get bigger. Using it in salads, the young stuff tends to be a little more tender. If you're going to be cooking it, then you might want let the plants get a little bit larger. So, and I do have some bok choy, which I think I'm going to put right in the garden. Same with my onions. So there are all my seedlings that I just transplanted. 3 trays there, 48, so it's 144 plants there. At least some are doubled up. But anyway, I watered them in with the watering can. I've got them sitting on those green tubs. Those are filled with water, or at least 2/3 filled with water. That's going to help be as a bit of a heat sink. And we see how things go. And you'll see I got the lettuce, planted those. I only ended up planting a couple of those ones at the end. I doubled up. Those were the spindly ones that weren't under grow lights. The rest all it was, I had too many, so planted those in. And yeah, well, also did the carrots, a pot of carrots here as well. So we'll get things growing. We'll give an update in another week probably. I should be next weekend planting those seedlings that come in. And until then, enjoy your gardening.